Dear members, welcome to Vienna for our winter meeting. Before we begin, let me remind you of a few technical issues. This meeting is being recorded and streamed on the OSCPA's social media platforms and website. As noted in the procedural information circulated amongst all delegations, members wishing to intervene in debates must sign up in advance. As I expect a large number of colleagues will wish to participate in our open debate tomorrow morning, I will limit the time for interventions to 2 minutes. Thank you for your cooperation. We have the pleasure to welcome today for the first time at our winter meeting the President of the Austrian National Council, Walter Rosenkrantz. Mr. President, we are grateful for your time today. Thank you for joining us. We are also delighted to welcome for the first time the new OSCE Secretary General.
He's coming.
He's coming. Mr. Feridun Sinirlioglu, who will address our assembly for the first time. We look forward to working closely with him. Unfortunately, the OSCE chairperson in office, the Foreign Minister of Finland, Mrs. Elina Valtonen, was unable to join us today. Ambassador Häkkinen, the permanent representative of Finland to the OSCE, will deliver remarks on behalf of the OSCE chairpersonship and will be able to answer your questions. With this, let me now invite President Rosenkrantz to deliver his address.
Sehr geehrte Frau Präsidentin Kaumer, sehr geehrter Herr Vorsitzender Botschafter Häkkinen, bereits jetzt im Kommen, sehr geehrter Herr Generalsekretär Sinirlioglu, sehr geehrter Herr Generalsekretär Montella, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, es ist für mich eine große Ehre, heute hier vor Ihnen sprechen zu dürfen, und es ist mir eine große Freude, Sie dieses Jahr zum ersten Mal als Präsident des österreichischen Nationalrats in Wien, dieser traditionellen Kongressstadt, begrüßen zu dürfen. Wir begehen heuer das 50. Jubiläum der Schlussakte von Helsinki. In Helsinki wurde damit der Grundstein für die europäische Kooperation in Sicherheitsfragen gelegt. Ich freue mich vor diesem Jubiläum auch, Finnland zum Antritt des Vorsitzes gratulieren zu dürfen. Dieses Abkommen, unterzeichnet am 1. August 1975 von 35 Staaten der Konferenz über Sicherheit und Zusammenarbeit in Europa, markierte eine der bedeutendsten diplomatischen Errungenschaften des 20. Jahrhunderts. Es war der Versuch, den Kalten Krieg durch Dialog und gegenseitige Verpflichtung auf Frieden, Zusammenarbeit und Menschenrechte zu entschärfen. Die 10 Prinzipien der Helsinki-Schlussakte, darunter Souveränität, friedliche Streitbeilegung und die Wahrung der Menschenrechte, legten den Grundstein für das, was wir heute als OSZE kennen und schätzen. Die aktuelle Situation in Europa erinnert uns daran, dass heute, 50 Jahre später, die damals festgelegten Prinzipien, und das ist leider keine leere Floskel, aktueller denn je sind. Die weltpolitische Lage, auch für Europa, ändert sich nahezu im Stundentakt. Aber eines bleibt: Konflikte müssen durch Diplomatie und Zusammenarbeit gelöst werden, nicht durch Kriege. Die OSZE und insbesondere ihre parlamentarische Dimension ist es, dass es ein einziges Forum darstellt, das geschaffen wurde, um alle Akteure an einen Tisch zu holen. In Zeiten multipler Krisen, insbesondere angesichts der völkerrechtswidrigen russischen Aggression in der Ukraine, ist eine starke OSZE und anhaltender Dialog wichtiger denn je zuvor. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, vor fast genau 3 Jahren hat Russland die Ukraine angegriffen. Seitdem sehen wir jeden Tag, wie dadurch unermessliches Leid und Verzweiflung erzeugt wird. Familien werden auseinandergerissen, Menschen sterben, Menschen müssen fliehen. Daher sage ich in aller Deutlichkeit, dieser Krieg muss so schnell wie möglich enden. Wie jeder Krieg wird auch dieser am Verhandlungstisch enden. Die Ukrainerinnen und Ukrainer verdienen einen umfassenden, gerechten und dauerhaften Frieden und das rasch. Klar ist aber auch, dass keine Entscheidung über diesen Frieden ohne die Ukraine getroffen werden kann. In diesem Sinne bin ich auch überzeugt, dass die OSZE mit ihrem umfassenden Instrumentarium zur Konfliktbewältigung einen entscheidenden Beitrag zu Frieden und Sicherheit in der und für die Ukraine leisten kann. Tschernobyl war auch schon immer ein Synonym für eine Bedrohung für das gesamte Europa. Das neutrale Österreich als Sitzstaat der OSZE ist der natürlich besonders verpflichtet. Wir sind bereit, einen diplomatischen Prozess aktiv zu begleiten. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, lassen Sie mich auch einen anderen Aspekt für die Sicherheit, für die Menschen erörtern. Als ehemaliger Volksanwalt der Republik Österreich weiß ich um die essentielle Rolle von Ombudseinrichtungen. Sie sind für eine demokratische und rechtsstaatliche Ordnung zum Schutz und zur Förderung der Menschenrechte und zum Bekämpfen von Missständen in der öffentlichen Verwaltung notwendig. Sie garantieren neben den unabhängigen Gerichten die Wahrung der Rechtsstaatlichkeit. Um diese wichtige Funktion zu gewährleisten, ist die Unabhängigkeit von Ombudseinrichtungen essentiell. Leider werden wir zunehmend Zeuge von Entwicklungen, die diese Kontrollorgane bedrohen. Ombudsleute werden in ihrer Tätigkeit behindert oder öffentlich angegriffen. Einrichtungen werden geschwächt, indem ihre Amtsträger nicht nachbesetzt werden. Manche Ombudseinrichtungen werden gänzlich abgeschafft. Diese Entwicklungen sind inakzeptabel. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich appelliere an Sie, in Ihren Parlamenten die Arbeit und die Unabhängigkeit der Ombudseinrichtungen zu fördern und dieses wichtige Werkzeug, die Gewährleistung rechtsstaatlicher Prinzipien, zu bewahren. Erst wenn Missstände in der Verwaltung aufgezeigt und behoben werden und Empfehlungen beim Gesetzgeber Gehör finden, können Ombudseinrichtungen ihre Wirkung gänzlich entfalten. Die österreichische Volksanwaltschaft beherbergt seit nunmehr 15 Jahren das internationale Ombudsman-Institut, das International Ombudsman Institute, IOI, das sich als globales Netzwerk für die Verbreitung und Stärkung unabhängiger Ombudseinrichtungen einsetzt. Ich will Sie daher an dieser Stelle einladen, diese Bemühungen in Ihren Heimatländern zu unterstützen. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, die Parlamentarische Versammlung leistet einen grundlegenden Beitrag zur demokratischen Entwicklung im OSZE-Raum. Ihre Wahlbeobachtungen sind von entscheidender Bedeutung. Sie können die Einhaltung demokratischer Standards sicherstellen und das Vertrauen der Bevölkerung in den Wahlprozess stärken. Ich kann Ihnen versichern, das österreichische Parlament wird sein langjähriges und intensives und vor allem auch parteienübergreifendes Engagement im Rahmen der OSZE fortführen. Abschließend möchte ich Malta für die erfolgreiche Vorsitzführung 2024 in überaus herausfordernden Zeiten danken. Ihnen, Herr Botschafter Häkkinen, wünsche ich weiterhin viel Erfolg für Ihren Vorsitz 2025 in nicht minder herausfordernden Zeiten unter dem Motto Respect, Respond, Prepare. Ich danke für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit und freue mich auch auf Ihren Besuch heute Abend im Parlament.
Thank you, President Rosenkrantz. Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, dear friends. It is a privilege to officially open this winter meeting in a year of profound significance for European security. The 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act is not just a milestone, it's a call for action. In 1975, the Helsinki Final Act established the core principles that guide our work: sovereignty, territorial integrity, the peaceful settlement of disputes, and human rights. Endorsed by 35 nations at a time of deep division, these principles were a landmark achievement, but today they are under threat. As the US President Gerald Ford stated in Helsinki 50 years ago, history will judge this conference not by what we say today, but by what we do tomorrow, not by the promises we make, but by the promises we keep. Half a century later, this is our challenge. Are we ensuring that these commitments remain meaningful? Fellow parliamentarians, the Helsinki Final Act was never an endpoint. It launched a process that brought Europe closer to peace and security. As President Kekkonen of Finland then stated, a conference is of value only if its results are put into practice. Yet today, we witness the most brutal war on the European continent since the Second World War. In a few days, we will mark 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, an illegal and provoked act of aggression that has shaken the OSCE's foundation. I saw Ukraine's resilience firsthand in Kyiv, but so too the immense destruction. This war did not happen overnight. It followed years of eroding arms control frameworks and rising geopolitical tensions. Now, the principles of the Helsinki Final Act are not just being challenged, they are being violated. This raises a fundamental question. Do we allow rising tensions to further erode the principles that we have ensured stability for decades? Or do we act to defend them? Colleagues, at the core of the OSCE's mission is the belief that security is best achieved through dialogue, mediation, and cooperation. But the threats we face today go beyond what the Helsinki signatories could have foreseen. Cyber attacks, critical infrastructure vulnerabilities, and the weaponization of migration are being used to undermine stability. Artificial intelligence is reshaping security from disinformation to cyber threats, but also offers opportunities. The impacts of climate change are becoming more severe, exacerbating resource scarcity and displacement, with direct implications for stability in our region. As ice recedes, geopolitical competition also in the Arctic is intensifying. New shipping routes are introducing new vulnerabilities. Similarly, the Baltic and North Seas are critical security domains, especially for protecting underwater infrastructure. Hybrid threats, from cyber attacks to disinformation, are destabilizing our democracies and weakening our trust in governance. Nowhere is this more evident than in Ukraine. Facing not only full-scale military aggression, but also the broader security threats reshaping our region, Ukraine is at the front line of this struggle. This makes our responsibility clear. Ukraine needs real security guarantees, ensuring sovereignty and territorial integrity, not just today, but for the long term. This is precisely where the OSCPA must step up. By strengthening parliamentary oversight, promoting best practices, and ensuring coordinated responses, we can be more effective. But words alone are not enough. The OSCE's strength lies in its ability to bring diverse voices together, fostering dialogue and delivering practical solutions. This is not the time for symbolic gestures. We must act with decisive policies, real oversight, and unwavering support for Ukraine and all those facing aggression. Fellow parliamentarians, our response must be guided by action, not just aspiration. The OSCE must remain an effective platform for preventing tensions, fostering cooperation and reinforcing security where it is most needed. As OSCE parliamentarians, you play a vital role in bringing these principles into life through election observation, field visits, mediation, and advocacy. This assembly must remain a driving force, not only by debating policy, but holding governments accountable to their commitments. Looking ahead, the OSCE must be ready to contribute meaningfully to European security, whether through fact-finding measures, monitoring activities, or confidence-building measures. We need concrete steps. Ensuring the return of forcibly displaced Ukrainian children, securing the release of prisoners of war, freeing the OSCE staff unjustly detained by Russia. Over the next 2 days, we will tackle these challenges together. We will explore ways to strengthen the OSCE's role in conflict resolution, bolster democratic resilience, and adapt our organization to an evolving security landscape. But even as calls for diplomacy grow louder, we must recognize that diplomacy must be rooted in principles, not concessions. Dialogue must serve peace, not provide cover for continued aggression. As parliamentarians, we must be vigilant against efforts to weaken our collective resolve. Our message must be clear. Peace cannot come at the expense of justice, nor can stability be achieved by rewarding aggression. That is why we must actively defend the principles of self-determination, territorial integrity, and the broader foundation of our security architecture. Therefore, let this anniversary year be more than a commemoration, let it be a recommitment. The principles enshrined in the Helsinki Final Act were never meant to be relics of history. They are responsibilities we must uphold every day, not just in our words, but through action. Each of us here has a role through debates, resolutions, and pressure on our governments. This assembly must not merely witness history, it must shape it. Our duty is clear. Defend the Helsinki principles, hold governments accountable, and turn commitments into action. Thank you, dear colleagues, and I look forward to our discussions. And next, dear colleagues, we will hear the address by the Secretary General of OSCE, Mr. Feridun Sinirlioglu.
Thank you, dear President, dear Pia, dear Secretary General, dear Roberto, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. By now it is clear to everyone 2025 will be a crucial year. It is a pleasure to start my tenure under Finnish chair. Helsinki is the birthplace of our organization, and the Final Act remains the North Star of the security architecture in Europe. Its set of principles remains as valid today as it was when our heads of state and government signed it. The world is very different now, no doubt about it. The OSCE, to start with, had only 35 participating states in the room, but the underpinning core ideas of comprehensive security, cooperation, dialogue, and mutual accountability remain the pillars of states' coexistence. As the chair has repeatedly said, there is indeed a profound and urgent need to respect OSCE principles and commitments, respond to today's mounting challenges, and most importantly, prepare for the future where, and I am convinced, the OSCE can have a crucial role to play. And here, let me underscore that the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly plays a critical role in promoting our shared principles and commitments. Your engagement is essential in ensuring that the OSCE remains an effective platform for dialogue and action. I look forward to working with all of you to strengthen the OSCE's ability to foster dialogue, cooperation, and address the security challenges we collectively face. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my first words here today cannot but be for Ukraine. The ongoing war is an open wound in the heart of Europe. It has killed and wounded well over 1 million people, displaced countless, destroyed cities and villages, and it must end now. It is time to put diplomacy first again. Here I want to share my thoughts about the 3 OSCE officials, Maxim Petrov, Dmytro Shabanov, and Vadim Golda, who are still detained in Donetsk and Luhansk. It is my intention to leave no stone unturned to see them come back to their families. In Ukraine, there is a lot the OSCE is doing, and I believe there is a lot the OSCE can do in the future. It has the tools, experience, and expertise to play a key role subject to consensus. Looking more broadly at the whole region, the OSCE has years of experience of conflict prevention and management. As Secretary General, I will continue supporting existing formats, and I will strive to maintain a high level of preparedness to be able to quickly support participating states when a need arises and when conditions allow. The OSCE's history demonstrates we are able to play our part in broader international efforts, and I will maintain an open dialogue with all participating states to seize the opportunities to deliver much-needed support that might present themselves going forward. In this regard, I look forward to visiting OSCE field operations all across our region. Their work remains a unique feature of this organization, and it will be my priority to increase their visibility. Alongside our conflict prevention and management work, which is the core of our mission, the OSCE has developed rich and unique programmatic offer in support of participating states' efforts to implement their commitments. Across all 3 dimensions, from the illicit proliferation of small arms and light weapons to combating corruption and enhancing cybersecurity, from combating trafficking in human beings to the security aspects of water management, we have built a niche and are able to provide support that nobody else can deliver. On a number of these dossiers, we enjoy tremendous cooperation with the Parliamentary Assembly. Excellencies, this organization is and remains the essential platform of European security. It needs to be preserved, and its relevance must be made much more visible. We are in urgent need of investment, both of political capital and financial resources. There is no doubt that today's geopolitical situation is difficult, but geography is not going to change. So we need and will continue to need this security platform for mutual accountability, dialogue, and joint action in Europe. The time to invest in this organization is now, because without adequate resources, we are just not going to be in a position to survive, let alone deliver. In a rapidly changing world, the OSCE is the platform for dialogue. We need to slowly rebuild our frail security system. With mutual trust at its lowest point and the need for peace at its highest, what better platform is there to address the current challenges? I have always believed in multilateralism and cooperative security, and I see no better platform than our organization. In this context, The OSCE Parliamentary Assembly plays a key role in ensuring that our collective commitments translate into meaningful action. Through your work, you give voice to the principles we stand for and hold governments accountable to their obligations. Your engagement strengthens the OSCE's ability to deliver real impact, and your dedication ensures that our organization remains a relevant and effective force for security and cooperation. Your role as the representatives of your communities and peoples and delegates represents a vital link between the OSCE and the people it serves. Let me close by saying that despite all the challenges, the OSCE is as relevant as it was 50 years ago. And it is important to recognize that on our golden anniversary, it has successfully fostered dialogue despite all differences. It has offered joint solutions to complex problems, and it has survived despite the wars and destruction the region has suffered. In the past years, it delivered unique work and tangible results in areas where nobody else could have. In 2025, we need to collectively recommit to the Helsinki Decalogue and to give multilateral diplomacy a chance. I stand ready to do so. I thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. I now give the floor to the Ambassador Häkkinen on behalf of the OSCE chairperson. You have the floor.
Distinguished President Kauma, distinguished President Rosenkrantz, Secretaries General, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, greetings and apologies from the CIO, the chairperson in office, Finnish Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Elina Valtonen. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here. In 1975, the adoption of the Helsinki Final Act was in many ways considered radical. At the time, Europe was divided. Yet 35 countries agreed on principles such as territorial integrity and respect for human rights. The adoption of the Helsinki Final Act was an expression of common belief that transcended both borders and ideologies, the human yearning for freedom and peace. The desire to live in peace and the freedom to make choices regarding our future was guiding us back then, and is the essence of the OSCE's work also today. The people of the participating states deserve to live in freedom, peace and security, working together to build Europe's future. So, ladies and gentlemen, almost 3 years ago have passed since the Russian Federation started its war of aggression against and in Ukraine. The war undermined the European security order. Russia is violating all of the Helsinki principles, inviolability of frontiers, territorial integrity, peaceful settlement of disputes, and other key values. Supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence is at the heart of the Finnish chairpersonship this year. Some might think that Russia's actions rendered the Helsinki Final Act meaningless. But the principles and commitments of the OSCE have not lost their relevance. If one participating state violates against those, it does not make the rules void. On the contrary, on the very contrary, people in Europe now understand the importance of freedom even more clearly than before. The CIO, Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen, she visited Ukraine and Moldova at the very beginning of our chairpersonship year. She wanted to visit these countries right at the start of our chairpersonship to underline our support to the peoples of these countries. Madam President, distinguished delegates, a stable and resilient society recognizes plurality and extensive rights of participation. Human rights, democracy, and the rule of law lay the foundations of stable societies. The autonomous institutions of the OSCE, as well as the OSCE field operations, they provide invaluable support to the participating states. This takes place across all dimensions and regions, for example, through election observation, where the Parliamentary Assembly also plays a key role. The chairpersonship program is built on three guiding principles: respect, respond, and prepare. Finland calls attention to the importance of implementing OSCE principles and commitments. The OSCE offers a wide range of tools that help the participating states to walk the talk. The Secretariat and autonomous institutions are crucial in this work. With respect to responding to today's challenges, Ukraine is fighting to defend not only its independence and peaceful future, but also the jointly agreed security order based on international law. Preparing the OSCE for the future, it's a challenging task for the organization during this year, 2025. The mere existence and continuation of an organization, it cannot be its raison d'etre. But what role does the OSCE hold in the future? From our point of view, in the short term, I and the Finnish chairpersonship are sure that this year will be a decisive for European security. There cannot be negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine, and there evidently cannot be negotiations on Europe without Europe. The OSCE has never been an organization for like-minded states. Rather, participating states with varying national interests and concerns have come together and found a decisive common denominator, that is, security and cooperation in Europe. The OSCE is a well-equipped and respected party to represent and uphold Europe's security architecture. In the long term, the OSCE needs to reform and adapt to our thus far constantly evolving security environment. Whatever the future may hold, one thing is certain: there will be a need for cooperation to ensure the security of Europe. The partnership between the OSCE chairpersonship and the Parliamentary Assembly is crucial to our shared mission, and we look forward to our continued cooperation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Häkkinen. And now we move on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is questions and answers. And I will now give the floor to members who have signed up in advance to ask questions. Each member will have 1 minute to ask his or her question. We will then hear the answers, and but first we will hear all the questions. And before giving Secretary General Sinioglu and Ambassador Häkkinen an opportunity to answer to them. So I have here approximately 10 people who have asked for the floor, and the first one will be Mr. Pritchard from United Kingdom, and he will be followed by Daniela de Ridder from Germany. Mark, you have the floor. All right, Mr. Pritchard is not here, then I give the floor directly to Daniela de Ridder from Germany, please.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Rosenkrantz, auch Ihnen für Ihre Gastfreundschaft, Herr Generalsekretär Sinioglu. und Herr Botschafter Häkkinen. An Sie richtet, Herr Botschafter, sich meine Frage. Denn unter Ihrer Führung wird die OSZE mit den Herausforderungen der neuen US-Administration konfrontiert sein. Und dies gilt ja insbesondere im Hinblick auf die ausländische Einflussnahme in demokratische Prozesse. Das haben Sie ja stark gemacht. Und die europäische Vertretung in den US-Russland-Gesprächen über den Krieg gegen die Ukraine. US-Persönlichkeiten wie Herr Trump, aber auch Herr Vance oder Herr Musk haben deutlich gemacht, dass sie nicht davor zurückschrecken, sich auch beispielsweise in den deutschen Wahlkampf einzumischen. Solche Interventionen, lassen mich dies ausdrücklich betonen, stören die regelbasierte Ordnung der OSZE erheblich. Daher meine Frage, welche Maßnahmen plant die OSZE unter Ihrer Führung, also unter finnischer Führung, um die Integrität demokratischer Prozesse vor ausländischer Einflussnahme zu schützen? Und Gleiches gilt auch für die saudi-arabischen Gespräche, wo Sie ja wissen, dass uns hier als Europäern gesagt wurde, wir wollen am gleichen Tische sitzen. Es gäbe gar keinen Tisch. So etwas, Herr Botschafter, sind wir nicht gewohnt. Was also plant die OSZE unter finnischer Führung, um sicherzustellen, dass die Interessen aller Mitgliedstaaten und insbesondere in der Ukraine vertreten sind und Europa und vor allem die OSZE insgesamt wieder eine bedeutende Rolle erhält? Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Mrs. De Ridder. And now I can see that Mr. Pritchard has arrived, so you have the floor, Mark.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is on multilateralism, and today we live in a, should we say, a conflated, conflicted, perhaps even confused geopolitical space. I'd be interested to hear the view on whether multilateralism is receding, or actually, paradoxically, it is an opportunity for Europe, including the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. And I then give the floor to Mr. Mikita Poturayev from Ukraine, and he will be followed by Mrs. Hedy Fry from Canada.
Thank you, Madam President, distinguished colleagues. Ms. Valtonen, as the chairperson in office of the OSCE, made a strong statement on social media that Russia has no intention to stop its expansionist pursuit, and this is the time for Europe. And I cannot but agree that Europe must mobilize against Russia's attempts to rewrite the rules of the rules on our continent. Unfortunately, we are living in a time when democracy and freedom have to be defended with weapons, first of all, but of course with diplomacy also, but unfortunately on the battlefields in Ukraine. So I would like to address a question to the chairperson in office. How do you intend to use Finland OSCE chairpersonship to prevent the aggressor from being appeased, as well as for mobilizing Europe and all OSCE countries? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poturayev. And I now give the floor to Dr. Hedy Fry from Canada, and she will be followed by Ms. Sevin Fatalieva from
Thank you, Madam President. I want to congratulate you on a very strong and forceful speech that you made this morning. I was very proud of you as a woman to hear you speak so clearly. I want to know, my question is about the same that everyone is asking. How does a chairperson in office and Finland intend to have cooperation? We know that Russia has never been cooperative. They have a veto power. They have hamstrung the OSCE for quite a while in terms of dialogue and cooperation. And now we have another superpower in the OSCE region, the United States of America, that is threatening neighboring states. They're threatening Greenland and they're threatening Canada. It is not just a joke that Donald Trump has decided he wants to make Canada the 51st state. It is something that he repeats every single day and has not ruled out force in doing so. Our territorial integrity is at stake. That of Greenland is at stake. Panama is not in the region, but it is also at stake. What do we do when two strong members of the OSCE will not cooperate, will not have dialogue, will not decide what they're deciding about Ukraine right now? It's unacceptable that they can rule out the OSCE and Europe and even Ukraine from any talks. What are we going to do to two rogue nations in the OSCE? How do we bring them to heel? How do we get them to cooperate and have dialogue? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fry. And then I give the floor to Mrs. Sevin Fatalieva from Azerbaijan, and she will be followed by Mr. Ville Skinnari from Finland.
Thank you very much. France refuses to become a party to the Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities, and there are concerns about national minority rights in the country. What steps will you take to encourage France to join the convention and implement it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fatalieva. And now I give the floor to Mr. Ville Skinnari from Finland, and he will be followed by Mr. Yaroslav Yursichin from Ukraine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is very simple. As heard today, the main focus should and could be how we defend our principles in today's world. OSCE is not the only multilateral organization in crisis. UN, WTO, even the EU is struggling with unanimity, with unanimous outcomes. And the whole rules-based world is seeing double standards, even triple standards in practice. So my question is, dear friends and colleagues, that how we defend our principles, how we work, how we build up the coalition of trust, what we built up 50 years ago in Helsinki.
Thank you, Mr. Skinnari. And the next one will be Mr. Yaroslav Yursichin from Ukraine, and he will be followed by Mrs. Helena Storkenfeldt from Sweden.
Thanks, Madam President. I have a question which developed, the question was set up by my colleagues Mikita Poturayev. Finland, as a heading country, have experience very well and very elaborated experience with fighting with information threats a long time, because under Russia disinformation, Finland be a long period of time and still is. Which activity will be used or proposed by heading country to develop capacity in Europe to be more to be more effective to fight with information threats, because Russia don't care about any international law, and we see that now even big countries, so USA looks on that like a trick, not a rule to fight for freedom of speech. Thanks.
Thank you. And I then give the floor to Ms. Helena Storkenfeldt from Sweden, and she will be followed by Ms. Irina Gerashenko from Ukraine.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm here representing Sweden today, but as a citizen of the United States, I feel a strong need to speak up. The President of the United States has called President Zelensky a dictator. His Vice President has scolded all of Europe for not allowing disinformation to be deemed free speech. The current administration has also showed an astonishing lack of understanding for the implications of a Russian victory and the precedent that would set. there are no words. These are dangerous times, and at every crossroads, we must stand strong against the lure of authoritarianism and its evils. As parliamentarians, we understand that difficult questions demand difficult answers. To sway even the slightest and to take what may seem to be the easy way out is undoubtedly to let authoritarian forces win. So, fellow parliamentarians, freedom, democracy, and rule of law comes at a price, and it is through the strength of our convictions that we may stand united against those who would see us fall. My question is, how does the OSCE see this, and how would we prevent authoritarian perspectives to win? Thank you.
Thank you. And I next give the floor to Ms. Irina Gerashenko from Ukraine, and she will be followed by Ms. Özil Saki from Turkey.
Thank you, Madam President. Recent events demonstrated that the world is living in a new geopolitical reality. We are deeply concerned that public discourse has largely abandoned the discussion on holding Russia accountable for its crimes, ensuring its pay reparation, and utilizing frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine and compensate for Western aid. For us, Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty are axiomatic and cannot be subject to compromise. In your view, what role should the OSCE play in strengthening security on the European continent in this new reality? How do you see the path toward a just peace and security guarantees for Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question will go to Ms. Özil Saki from Turkey, and she will be followed by Mr. Fatmir Mediu from Albania.
Thank you. Today, the security of Europe and the security of the Middle East region are more interlinked than ever before. So, my question is that why European countries prefer the HTS, who is jihadist organization, not autonomous administration of northern and eastern Syria in Rojava? Do you know, while the members of studies European Union address the HTC, which is on their list of terrorist organization and has taken off control of some part of Syria, but only one movement, one organization, secular, women's liberation, LGBT rights, has depend Rojava administration. But why invited international organization, these governments? My question is that because the I don't know, but principles of European is more close to principles of administration Rojava. But why European countries prefer the terrorist organization, not secular organization of Rojava? Thank you.
Thank you. And next and the last question will go to Albania, Mr. Fatmir Medio. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Madam President, in the report you presented to us, I'm quoting you, you said that OSCPA will extend beyond election observations. And you continue that we must ensure that Parliament acts on OSCE recommendations. So my questions to you is, we'll have elections on May 11. And since 2013, socialist government never met OSCE recommendation on vote buying, intimidation of the voters, using public administration. So can you tell me how you can make it sure that they will act accordingly with the OSCE recommendation? First question. Second has to do about the observation mission from OSCPA. We are a political organization, and we are balanced, left and right. So in order to be trusted as an observation mission, don't you think that it will be better we have leading of this mission from both sides, left and right, so they can have a credibility on their report?
Thank you. I think we have now gone through all the list for the questions, and we will answer them. in the order they were presented. And I guess most of them went to Vesa Häkkinen, but also our Secretary General, Mr. Sinead Logi from Turkey, who will be able to respond. And I think we will start by Daniela de Rieder's question from Germany, and I think it was related to foreign influence in the election. So Vesa Häkkinen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam, for your very difficult question. Maybe I start by saying that resilience is a key word for the Finnish chairpersonship, and obviously the best way to fight any types of influencing is to strengthen the resilience of the people. One of our priorities is to strengthen the ability and the of the people to resist influence through media literacy, for example, among the participating states. Social media and other channels are used, and they will be used in the future for influencing malign influencing, of course, is one of those things that we have been facing since some years now. As a historian, I know that this goes very well back. When we are talking about elections, of course, ODIHR and the PA play a major role in observation, and also they set the standards for international, international standards for any elections. There were so many questions that I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Häkkinen. And next we go to Mark Richards' question. I think it was related to multilateralism.
Thank you. This is also one of those key questions, whether we are receding or is this an opportunity. At least it's a very big challenge for the whole of the multilateral system. It's not only the OSCE, it's all the multilateral organizations that are facing the same problem. There are unfortunately countries that are not subscribing to those commitments and principles that they did in the beginning. 1975 Helsinki Final Act is one good example. The Helsinki Decalogue, I mentioned in my statement already, that, for example, Russia has breached against all these 10 principles. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question was from Mr. Mikita Poturayev from Ukraine.
Thank you. And this, I guess, was the question concerning appeasing the aggressor. Once again, one of those key questions. Thank you so much. It's obviously not very easy to answer, but we need to hold an aggressor accountable. There should not be any impunity on on violations against international humanitarian law, human rights law, or war crimes. The OSCE has already done quite a, it has done many things. We have launched 4 times during the war a Moscow mechanism, which is an accountability tool on human rights. ODIHR has been on the ground reporting on their observations. They have been interviewing people. This material can be used afterwards. As a chair, we need to highlight and keep talking about the principles and how to safeguard them. The OSCE is not the only actor. So I think together with other international organizations, we need to keep working on these issues you asked about. in order to achieve any sustainable results. So thank you.
Thank you. And next we have the question from Dr. Hedy Fry from Canada.
Was this a question concerning?
Two participating states not having a proper dialogue.
Okay. This is similarly a question when we need to emphasize the principles and the commitments that we all subscribe to, not least the Helsinki Final Act. When it comes to countries like Ukraine, we need to continue supporting Ukraine. We need to support the constitution of that country. We need to support democratically elected MPs, president. So we need to look into the facts and talk about this and support the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we go to Ms. Sevin Fatalieva's question from Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Madam, for your question. This was a question on France. Of course, the question whether or not France would like to join the framework convention that you mentioned. It's an internal issue, and Finland as chairperson has no position on such internal deliberation, but it's nevertheless well received the question. Thank you so much.
And then we have a question from Finland, from Mr. Ville Skinnari.
Thank you, Mr. Skinnari, for your question. This was also a question concerning the multilateral system, and the OSCE is not the only. As you mentioned, we are facing similar problems in other organizations like the UN, Council of Europe. I would once again stress the importance of strengthening the principles that we already have in place. Talking about those, we need to really use the accountability tools that we have in place. At least in the OSCE, the accountability tools can also be used without consensus. There are not many things that the organization can do without consensus, but when we are talking about accountability, human rights, there are many things that we can do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then we have another question from Ukraine, from Mr. Yaroslav Yursichin.
Oh, thank you. This was the question concerning the information, malign information, disinformation as well. It is an important theme. I already said something about, and I maybe repeat that strengthening the resilience of the people, of the participating is one of our goals. Finland is well known of its, let's say, media literacy skills, learning and teaching people, starting from kindergartens, continuing the whole life, doing the same job every day once again. I think this is one of our strengths, and of course we have to do the same work every day ourselves, but we are happy to share best practices that we have. Thank you for this question. This is one of my favorite topics. Thank you.
Thank you. And next question was from Ms. Helena Storkenfeldt from Sweden.
This was also, thank you so much, Madam President and Madam, for asking the question. This was also concerning very much that is in the air right now. I would emphasize the support for Ukraine, talking about the facts, supporting the constitution, the democratically elected president, strengthening our principles. All these things that I mentioned already several times. It's not an easy task. We need to really concentrate together, strengthening the narrative in the world, which, I mean, the right narrative, if I may formulate it this way. But I see that this is in everyone's minds and it's an important topic and we need to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have again one question from Ukraine, and it was Miss Gerashenko asking it.
Thank you. And well noted. It's a question concerning how the OSCE can play a role in Ukraine. Of course, it's very much up to Ukrainians and Ukraine to decide whether they want OSCE to play part. There's some experience. We know that the reputation of the OSCE is not the best possible. The OSCE was in Ukraine from 2014 until this latest war of aggression 22. The organization has vast experience, and as a chair, Finland is well prepared to offer and plan together with Ukrainians and together with other participating states, if there's wish that the OSCE could and should play a role in Ukraine. So thank you for your question. We are well prepared.
And two more to go, Vesa. So next question was from Turkey, from Ms. Özgül Saki, and I think it was regarding women's and LGBT rights.
Yeah, thank you. I think thank you for the question. I think it's something that we need to really look into. Of course, Syria is not part of the OSCE region, not even a partner country. So I'm really not able to answer that question now. But I thank you for your question.
Thank you. And then we have come down to the last question, which was from Albania, Mr. Fatmir Medio, regarding election observations and having balanced political. I think, Vesa, you can respond to that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I thought this was a question addressed to the PA more. Okay, I will. I mean, of course, I mean when it comes to elections, the Parliamentary Assembly together with OSCE, I mean the ODIHR, is setting the standards and I mean the best practice to election observation. I'm pretty sure that they are able to offer you the assistance on the issues that you addressed. So I thank you for your question, and maybe President Kaumo can, let's say, fulfill to my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesa. I just wanted to hear what you are going to say. So maybe I will just complement a little bit. Of course, in every election observation, we try to keep the balance. And there are three issues related to which we keep the balance. And one is gender, second one is political balance, and third one is geographical, if only possible. So these are the three elements we try to stick to. But sometimes election observation missions arrive in a time when there are not so many experienced politicals available to lead the election observations. So we need to make compromises. But of course, we try to stick to the principles that we have all been committed to. So, but I think it's a very relevant question, and I think we need to stick to our principles also in that sense, in order to keep up our credibility towards all our participating states. So now, dear friends, dear colleagues, it has come time to take a break. And we have several sessions coming up during the break, and we will again resume at 3:15 in the afternoon for committee meetings. Thank you.